The AI apocalypse. Artificial intelligence is going to take your job, render you useless and pointless in the job market. What are you going to do for a living now that AI has replaced so many jobs? And how does the AI development impact the art world and the creators of paintings, drawings, and artworks? These are all very legitimate questions and things that we need to be considering in this time of life that we're in right now. But my mind goes back to history, the development of other artistic technologies. For most of human history, if you wanted to depict an image or person and show it to someone else who wasn't actually there, you had to paint it. You had to depict it with painting mediums. And so there was a demand for people who could do that, and that demand was called a job, and that job was titled artist. Well, as technology developed and advanced in the Industrial Revolution, people started experimenting with chemicals. And in 1826, Nicephore Niepce, I think that's how you pronounce it, he's credited with being one of the first people to fix an image on a surface using chemicals and light exposure. Now, his process took up to 8 hours, almost days, to truly expose the image, but it was the start of photography. Now, over the next 40 years, plenty of people experimented with different processes, whether with glass plates, metal plates, different chemicals, different processes, but it was all developing towards a technology that could quickly, easily, and effectively capture an image that you could see afterwards, you could see later on. And in 1884, George Eastman developed a technology of dry gel on paper, or film, which led the way to the mass market availability of photography to the average layperson. And in 1901, Kodak Brownie was the first commercially available camera that anybody could buy. Before then, it was just a hobbyist technique. Now, anyone can go and buy it and record photos of their life. Now, I imagine that this had an impact on the artist community. I mean, no longer, if you want a family portrait, do you have to get everybody together and they have to stand in front of an artist and they have to paint the family, and then months later they finish everything and you have a big family painting. Now you can get everybody together in front of a camera, press a button, and you have a family portrait. So the demand for the artist's skill has changed, but artists keep painting. Now, something interesting to me is that in the decades to follow, the art world shifted from realism into modernism. Cubism became introduced. Cubism and modern art began to take hold in the early 1900s, and I have to wonder, and I'm not enough of our historian to really say, but I have to wonder if the development of photography and the purpose of art shifted, leading to these new art styles. Now, if we flash back in photography a little bit, in 1860, the first edited and enhanced photo has been recorded. And it wasn't actually noticed until decades later. But in 1860, there was a photograph of John C. Calhoun, but somebody imposed Abraham Lincoln's head on top of it. And it's self-proclaimed as the first manipulated photo. And for a while, photo manipulation was limited to simply putting people in that weren't there before, or bringing multiple photos together to develop a broader image. And for a while, photo editing skill, like technology, was very rudimentary, literally cutting photos and taping them, pasting them together. In 1917, the first of the Cottingley Fairies photographs was taken. Now, if you're not familiar with this, it's kind of an actually interesting, fun story. A couple of sisters, one was named Elise, I don't remember the other name, I should have written it down in my research. They were in their backyard, and they snapped a photo of them almost seemingly playing with fairies in their backyard, like from the fairy tales and the stories that they grew up with as girls. And as you can imagine, in 1917, this generated some controversy. Is this a real photograph? Are these actually fairies that they took pictures of. They sent the photos to various different photography manufacturers and just to confirm, like, is this a real photo? And some people were saying, yes, it's a real photo, it's not been tampered with at all. And others were saying, well, it's definitely a photo, but I'm not saying that fairies are real. And fun fact, completely unrelated to this video, but fun fact, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes, was an avid spiritualist and enthusiastic about the spiritual realm. And so when he heard about this photo and he saw it, he got so excited because he was convinced that this would be the missing link that would open up the 20th century world to realizing that there's more that exists beyond this realm, and there's fairies and there's other spiritual things, because that's what his obsession was. And so he actually included these fairy photographs in one of his articles, the 1920 Christmas edition of the Strand magazine that he was an author in. And these girls took a series of 5 different photographs over the course of 3 years, depicting them playing with fairies. It actually wasn't until 1983 that, on pretty much their deathbeds, they admitted that they'd faked the photographs. It was just cardboard cutouts of fairies that they'd taken photos of with themselves. Although they did claim to have actually seen fairies, but the photographs were faked. And I bring this up because, in addition to representing the real life, even as early as 1917, we see photographic representations of a fantastical life. Imagination is being photographed, right? People are using their imagination and the tool of photography to capture impossible worlds. And in 2024, with the ability to do Photoshop, photo editing, that kind of thing, you and I both know the ability for photo editors to create fantastical realms that don't exist, but with photography. And I bring this up because that was another purpose of art, was to depict and display impossible and unreal realms, or realms that you couldn't photograph per se, that were not real. So in that way, photography also replaced the purpose of art. So then why did artists keep painting? Here's one more quick story. In 1948, Columbia Records starts selling PVC long playing records, or LPs, and it drastically changes the music scene. And for the next 30 years, vinyl records are the technology for playing music. But then in 1978, 30 years later, the Sony Walkman comes out. And in less than 5 years, cassettes are outselling records. And just a few more years after that, record sales drop insanely. Did the development of the cassette and the Sony Walkman destroy music? Well, no. It just changed how we experience it. If you were an owner of a record store in 1979 or 1980, is your job threatened? It 100% is. But you could also start selling cassettes. Get with the times, old man. But an interesting phenomena occurred. In 2008, the vinyl sales started to rise, and then by 2018, they sold $9.7 million worth of vinyl records. In 2018. By that time, we already have Spotify. We have YouTube Music. We have Apple Music. We have all these online streaming services. Why the record resurgence? It's because it's vintage. It's a vintage activity. And because it's cool. Art is an inherently human thing. I mean, from almost the very beginning of human civilization, you have humans depicting objects on cave walls, caveman paintings, whatnot. Decorations on vases or bowls, and then some vases and bowls that were made, decorated, and ultimately never used for the purpose of being a bowl. Why? Because it's a human experience, it's a human thing. The very best that an AI can generate is simply a copy of the photos that have been fed to its algorithm. I do not believe that even the most advanced machine learning will ever draw smiley faces on its hard drives or paint over its hands on the side of the laboratory walls. I believe that there is a core meaning in art, something that is very uniquely human, and no matter how convoluted or misconstrued the truth becomes, that core will remain unreplicable by technology. The medium and the expression may change, but the human aspect will not. Let me ask you this. Will an AI bot ever choose to do something that's irrational simply because it's cool? Will machine learning ever do something simply because it enjoys it? Example, listening to records, or going hiking, feeling the sunshine, and making art. Here's another question. Will a human ever buy an AI painting for their wall? Maybe. But when you put them side by side at an art fair or at a gallery, is a human going to purchase a piece made by a human or a piece made by AI that a human gave directions? What's my point? The economy of art may change, but the essence of art is purely human. And humans will always have a place of value in the art world. But Reagan, what about graphic design? What about digital art and design? Good question. And if that's your job, then that's something to be concerned about. For example, Blockbuster closed. The record stores closed. If you are old enough to remember Blockbuster, I briefly remember going into Blockbuster. Sold VHS tapes. That technology is no longer useful. It's no longer used very much by the populace. And so the store's closed. And if you're an employee of Blockbuster, where do you go? What do? You still need a job. If your very livelihood gets undermined and by advancing technology, that is sad and it's unfortunate. But if you have a passion for working in a field of art, there will always be a place for the human mind. You're a human with a human mind. The human mind is leaps and bounds further developed than any of the most cutting-edge technology. Sure, they may be able to beat anybody in a game of chess. They may be able to translate 700 different languages, but an AI is still struggling to take a look at it, to look and see what's in front of it and analyze what it is. If you live in fear and anxiety of what you're going to do for a living after AI takes your job, then you're basically believing that AI is better than you at being human. And that's not true. You're a human. Get out there and do what humans do. Think creatively. Overcome adversity. That's what we do as humans. We're really, really good at that. We're really, really good at overcoming challenges and pivoting and adapting to new situations. The only people that are really at threat are the people who are unwilling to adapt. Think outside the box. Think outside the computer. If you're still passionate about a job in art, there will be a valuable place for a human mind in your field. Your job may look different. You may need to get a different job, but you can still work in that field. There's still a place for you. You're not being replaced. You're just changing your position. As an example, my father went to school and learned a programming language that no longer is used, and yet he still works in computer science. The degree that he learned is useless, but he doesn't see that as a waste of his time. He sees it as a way that he got into the computer science world, and he's stayed in the computer science world. And he's using totally different programming languages and totally different tools, yet he's still in the field. So if you're passionate about art as a field, as a graphic designer or an online art or a digital artist, there still will be a place for you. Now the real threat that I see is the copyright issues. Art theft is a real danger that we face. It's also not new, but it is getting easier and easier. This is the biggest problem that I see with AI art, is that a lot of AI algorithms are stealing images from real artists and using that to create their AI-generated art. There are already laws and protections in place to copyright and protect the original artworks by people. Those laws need to grow, develop, and evolve to include the realm of AI art. And we need to prepare for the reality that those laws and protections are not perfect, and they may not be perfect every time. But do not lose hope. Art theft is real, but AI cannot steal any art that you haven't made yet. I would love to see an AI bot imagine the art that I'm going to create next week, next month, next year, and create it before I do. No, AI bots are just going to imitate and replicate and copy the stuff that already exists. And that's the value of a human mind, is that we are imagining artwork that doesn't exist yet, and we bring it into existence. The idea in your mind is still special and still more valuable than anything that a bot can create. Skill is replicated, stolen, imitated, but real ideas? That's a human experience. Plus, an argument could be made that even you and I, as human artists, we're simply making art as a reflection of the different images and experiences that we have. In other words, doing the same thing as the AI algorithm does. But that's a conversation for a different time. To answer the question at the start of the video, is AI going to take over the art world? Earthquakes change the surface and the structure of the Earth, but they do not cause the Earth to cease to exist. So no, AI is not going to destroy the art world. And I fully believe that there will always be a niche and a value and a place for human traditional artworks, like blacksmithing. Blacksmithing is a niche. I got obsessed with it a few years ago. I still probably would like to do it. There's no need for blacksmithing, but it still exists. Like hammer to hot metal. I mean, it's part of historical preservation at this point, but there's also people out there that just do it for a hobby, and they like it. There's a place for it. I do predict that AI will radically shift what the art economy looks like. I predict that AI, as a tool, will challenge our beliefs about the distinction between the skill and the artistic vision. I predict that plagiarism and art theft will be a problem that lawmakers need to crack down on. They will eventually, and life will go on. The world will keep spinning. I predict that AI-generated art will be seen and included as just another medium of artistic expression. The Museum of Modern Art, the MoMA, already has a display of AI-generated art. And that's just an example of how AI art will have a place in museums and galleries, art fairs. Eventually, we're going to stop being prejudiced against it and just embrace it as a new medium, like photography. It's different. It looks different. But it has its place. I don't believe that it will ever replace traditional art form, or even true human digital art form. So go ahead and keep making art. Don't lose hope. Grow your skill, practice your craft, and don't be afraid of the AI boogeyman. Just know that your artistic value does not come from your skill, it comes from your vision.